It is my pleasure to now officially welcome everyone to today's webinar on Designing Successful Agritourism Experiences Spotlight on Australia. My name is Christine Denton-Tinnis, and I'm a member of the Global Agritourism Network Education Committee and owner and founder of Northeast Experience, where we help communities, businesses, and destinations create responsible travel through experience design, education, and storytelling. I'm thrilled to be your moderator for today's webinar. We're joined by an amazing panel of experts that you will get to meet very soon. Today's conversation will explore how agritourism is evolving beyond traditional farm visits into rich, story-driven experiences that connect people to land, culture, and community. There's a rising demand from travelers seeking authentic farm-to-table experiences, immersive rural stays, and eco-conscious vacations. And as more consumers prefer sustainability, local culture, and hands-on nature-based activities, agritourism is increasingly viewed as a valuable, meaningful alternative to traditional tourism. While our focus is on Australia, the insights and takeaways are truly global, so offering ideas you can adapt no matter where in the world you're joining from today. We will spotlight Australia's incredible innovations that weave sustainability, heritage, and hospitality together. So today we're joined by three outstanding panelists and leaders in agritourism based in Australia. Louise Freckleton, owner of Highfield Farm and Woodland and the Kestrel Nest Eco Hut Farmstay, located in snowy valleys of New South Wales. Jill O'Grady, owner of Red Ground Australia Truffles, located in Big Blue Mountain, also in New South Wales. And Linda Tillman, Managing Director of Tilma Group, a rural tourism development consultancy based in southern Queensland. Linda works with regions and operators to build visitor economies, strengthen business capacity, and design high-quality agritourism experience. Next slide, please. Before we get started, I'd like to share a little bit about the Global Agritourism Network, also known as GUN. GUN officially launched on April 11, 2023 during a global Zoom event and has grown rapidly ever since. Today, the network includes over 1,000 members from 106 countries, a truly international community. The membership is free, and if you're not yet part of the network, we encourage you to join. You can simply scan the QR code on your screen or visit the GUN website to register. GUN welcomes everyone working in or connected to agritourism, farmers, researchers, tourism professionals, educators, and many others. One of the most exciting strengths of this network is its true diversity, the wide range of professions, perspectives, and experiences represented around the world. Next slide, please. To help us get a sense of who's joining us today, we're launching our first poll. And while you're responding to the poll, I'd also love to invite everyone to introduce yourselves in the chat. We know you might be wearing multiple hats, so click all that apply to you. So now let's see what the poll results are showing. We have, I think this is probably what we expected. We have the largest portion is farmers, ranchers, producers, followed by business owners and managers, tourism professionals, service providers, nonprofits. I think a great representation from all the sectors, and looking into the chat box, it's a truly global community. We have delegates attending from California, Belarus, Georgia, Vermont, Ghana, Africa. I saw Canada in there too. Botswana, Australia, of course, the UK, a truly global network. So it's wonderful to see this global community coming together. We're also hoping to leave time at the end for Q&A. At any point during the webinar, please drop your questions into the Q&A box. Next slide, please. Now that we know who is in the virtual room with us, let's move into today's webinar topic. It's my great pleasure to welcome Linda Tillman, who will start us off with an introduction on experience design and value drivers, what makes an agritourism experience truly valuable and distinctive. Linda will also be moderating our panel discussion. And with that, I'll now hand things over to Linda to lead us into the session. Linda, the floor is yours.
Well, welcome everyone. A big Aussie welcome to a global audience. How exciting is this? I was just watching in the chat box and yeah, this is really lovely. So I just want to do, first of all, a little bit of an introduction. I know Christina's touched on a little bit of my background, but first of all, a big thank you to the Global Agritourism Association. We're honoured to be able to share with a global audience all the way from Australia. In my role at Tilma Group, I work with government, small business, not-for-profits, farmers, and we develop sustainable destinations right across regional Australia. And we have a specific focus on what we refer to in Australia as regional and rural locations. So essentially what that means is we don't really work in cities or metropolitan areas. We love regional and rural Australia. And our mission is to empower regional and rural Australia through strategy, capability building, and flagship programs that really create lasting regional vibrancy and resilience. One of the sectors that we specialise in, and it's probably my favourite, is agritourism. So we work a lot with government and farmers to develop agritourism experiences and experiences that really help develop destinations and support farm resilience. So I'm coming to you today from Guyable country in southern Queensland, more specifically Toowoomba. You can see the background image behind my photo at my image at the moment. That's my location looking west towards Brisbane. So we're 130 kilometres west of Brisbane in beautiful sunny Queensland. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and extend that acknowledgement to all First Nations peoples. And I welcome any First Nations people joining us from around the world to this webinar today. Now, before I dive in, I'm actually going to hand over to you for a couple of minutes. So what I'd encourage you to do is use your phone. You need to scan the QR code that you can see on the screen right now, and that's going to open up an app on your phone where you can respond to this question. A couple of little tips. Please add as many responses as you need to respond to that question, but keep it to 1 to 2 words because it does start to form a word cloud. And if you see that somebody's already added something that you agree with, then please select the same words because then it will start to create this bigger word cloud and demonstrate those things that are more prominent amongst this group. Now, if you're not able to use technology, please don't be concerned. Or if you don't have your phone handy, you're more than welcome to drop your responses into the chat. And I know we've got a diverse group. So, you know, we've got some people today joining us that are new to agritourism. They haven't started their journey yet. So think about what's holding you back. You know, what are the things that perhaps are concerning you to take the leap or to commence that journey into agritourism? And for those of you existing operators, what are the challenges you have faced or that you are facing in your agritourism business? Excellent. Okay, those 2 big ones are no surprise. So interesting to see it's a global issue. Excellent. We've still got a few people typing. I will just give another 30 seconds or so and we'll see where we get to with that. And I'm just keeping my eye on the time. Data, interesting. So not surprising, you know, in Australia, we always have that real concern around liability and the insurance considerations of bringing people onto your farm. So absolutely not alone there. Interesting ones there in terms of, you know, building partnerships, data, profitability. How interesting. You know, that's a really interesting one. And if anybody that's mentioned that wants to drop anything into the chat box, more specifically around what's concerning you, or if you've got any questions around that, because I find that quite interesting. And is that this fear of, will it be a profitability venture for me? You know, how do I make sure that it's a profitable venture? How do I make sure that it doesn't impact on the profit of my farming business? So all interesting questions. So liability looks like the biggest one, marketing, regulations, all very common. So what we'll do is we'll share this back to everyone. It's always really interesting to have a look at this. And once again, as I just said, if anybody has any specific questions relating to what they've raised here, please drop it into the chat box and we will try to make some time at the end, or you may have some questions for our guest presenters around these topics. Okay, interesting one at the bottom. Local government not supporting or hindering agritourism. I'd be curious to know where the participant is from that has said that one. You know, that's definitely an Aussie concern that we hear quite a bit. Building partnerships, I'm going to touch on that as well. So excellent. Lack of staff. Great work. Thank you all so much for participating in that. It's really interesting to see what some of those challenges and risks are, because obviously I'm here to talk to you about creating agritourism experiences. So we have to make sure that we're navigating these types of risks and challenges, whether you're new into agritourism, you're just exploring the opportunity perhaps with your family, or you are, you know, an experienced agritourism business and you're navigating these things consistently. Because I know certainly in Australia, when we start to bring tourism and agriculture or farming together, it's not always easy. It's a beautiful experience, but it's not always easy. So we want to try to help farmers navigate some of these challenges and risks. Fabulous work. All right. Thank you once again for sharing that with us today. All right. So now what I want to do is I'm just going to get you thinking. I'm going to get you thinking about some really critical things that you should be considering when you're designing an agritourism experience. And that is if it's a new experience, or perhaps you've got an existing agritourism experience and you just want to finesse it, or you want to develop that experience further. So I'm going to get you thinking today, and then I'm going to introduce you to our amazing case study panelists who have fabulous lived experience that they will share with you. So the three areas I really want you to think about when you're looking at designing an agritourism experience are these three areas that I've got on the screen right now. And I'm going to unpack each of these a little bit further with you. But once again, as I said, I'm just going to get you thinking. So we really want to consider when we're designing an agritourism experience, is it the right fit for my family? Does it suit my farm? And what is right for my destination? My place, my community, my town. These are three really critical things when we're working with farmers. These are some of the things that we start to discuss with them in the initial stages to help understand what is going to be the right agritourism experience for them. What's going to be the profitable one? What's going to be the lower risk option? What's going to support their business objectives? And more importantly, what's going to bring them joy and satisfaction? So let's have a quick look at each of these. And I am going to go through these quite quickly, but once again, we've got time. So drop things into the chat or the Q&A area, and we'll make sure that if we can't address them today, we'll absolutely come back to you on those points. All right. The first area is the family. So this is really about, and I think this is probably one of the main considerations is the entire family on board with your agritourism venture? What is right for your family? What supports your current business objectives? And just remembering with this one, what's really important is agritourism is not for everyone. So it's really important for you to understand, why are we doing it? Why do we want to do agritourism? And have that conversation around the table with your family. Understand what each of you want to gain from it. And what you can bring to it in terms of your skill set. Understand also no-go zones. That's interesting. So having that conversation with your family to say, well, we don't want to impact on our family holiday time, or we might have a special family space on the farm that we don't want to bring visitors to. There might be a culturally significant site or space. It's about setting boundaries as well, and making sure that tourism doesn't take over, and that the family feel comfortable and are very supportive with the tourism venture that you're taking on. The second consideration is the farm. You need to create an experience that fits your farm. What's special about your farm? What stories do you have to share? Because authenticity is absolutely key when we talk about designing great agritourism experiences. So think about what will suit your farm assets. Think about the access to your farm and the location of your farm. And I want you to also think about the operational fit with your core farming business. So what do you do best from a farming perspective? And can tourism actually help elevate or support that? And the third thing I want you to think about, and this is often one that we see farmers overlook, and perhaps just having that lack of awareness around how the tourism industry works, but really thinking about what will be the right fit for your destination, for your community, for your place. So you've got to take that wider lens when you're looking at designing an agritourism experience. So talk to your local council or tourism representatives to understand what the gaps and opportunities are doing. And the most important thing is don't just do what everyone else is doing. And think about your visitors and the seasonality and those considerations within your destination. Now, just finally and quickly to wrap up, I just wanted to share a really good example of how this has played out for me recently working with a farmer in southern Queensland, Esk Beef. So working with Ben, so that's Ben with his daughter on his horse on his cattle property in southern Queensland. Really quick example. So Ben wanted to turn an old shed into a wedding venue, and he also wanted to build some cabins on the creek on his farm. He's got a beautiful property. Why did he want to do this? Because he'd heard that weddings were profitable. He'd seen other farmers in the area doing weddings. He didn't realize the compliance and the regulation around it at this point. And he also saw that lots of people were putting accommodation on their farm. So to him, he was like, that must be working. That's what I should do. When we applied these three areas to Ben's situation, what was really interesting, he totally shifted, because he understood more what the family wants to gain from it. He understood what suits his farm, but probably most importantly, Ben then started to really understand what he wants to achieve for his farming business and how tourism can support that. And he was trying to create this full kind of value chain for his customers through selling his beef direct to his customers. So he's totally flipped. And now Ben at Esk Beef is launching really immersive, high quality, high yield farm tours and experiences on his farm that will allow people to sample his product, hear his stories, and build loyal customers for Esk Beef. So asking these questions is really important to understand that you're creating the agritourism experiences that will be sustainable and have that longevity for your farm, but also for your wider destination. So some things for you to consider there. Lots of different thoughts. Once again, please don't hesitate to drop questions into the chat box. But I'm now going to hand over to our first panelist, Jill O'Grady. Jill is the co-founder of Red Ground Australia in Oberon, New South Wales, where she cultivates 4 truffle varieties that enable almost year-round truffle hunts, which is often unheard of in Australia and in the industry. She's rapidly established Red Ground as a respected agritourism destination, recognised with awards for outstanding visitor experiences and excellence in fine food, supported by its distinctive alpine growing conditions, immersive guest offerings, private accommodation, sustainability credentials, ecological restoration work, and collaborations with premium experience providers. Over to you, Jill.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you for the opportunity to present today and share what we do here at Red Ground. So we are located about 177 kilometres from Sydney Airport, allowing day trips, or we encourage people to stay here longer and stay with our accommodation providers and experience the other things we have to offer in the region. So 2 years ago, I started our Truffle Hunt Touch and Taste immersion experience. And just to let you know, it was a slow start. We only had 1 ticket sale on the very first hunt. But now, 2 years later, we now have forward bookings into 2026 and into 2027 from visitors from around the world. So what we do here is I started with our signature Truffle Hunt Touch and Taste, the immersion experience. And I wanted people to experience everything there is about truffles. So the 3-hour experience was developed around explaining people how we grow the truffles here. And I have a presentation with just imagery, so it's ensured that everybody can grasp what I'm talking about. And we walk into the detail about how we train our dogs to find the truffles, which people love. They just love getting to know the dogs. And then we go into the actual truffier, or our truffle orchard, where I show people how to find the first truffle. and then watch the behavior of the dog and get really involved in what I do on a day-to-day basis. I then invite each guest, and I keep my groups really small and intimate. I take knee pads out and gloves, and everyone then gets to kneel down and delicately remove a truffle from the soil. And as they're going, I explain to them how delicate it is and how careful they have to be. I ask them to get a spoonful of soil and smell the soil because the aroma goes through the soil. So they're getting this sensory immersion. I also tell them, be very, very careful, because if you take the truffle off the tree roots too early, it won't ripen any further and we have to throw it away. So all of a sudden I'm building this excitement, this little bit of anxiousness, and they're very careful. And then once they emerge that truffle from the soil, they have that in their hand and they love the Instagram worthy photos, and they all just start taking photos and they're just so excited. They've never done anything like that before. A lot of them have never ever been on a farm. So we love showcasing that. And then we take them back inside and we do truffle tastings with sparkling wine. And I make everything from scratch, all the food. So a truffle is a very scary ingredient because it's $2,800 a kilo. So many people will never buy one. They're just too frightened to use it. But because I create everything from scratch, they'll say, how did you make this? And I explain it to them, and all of a sudden it's not so scary. And then I take them into a grading workshop, how we grade the truffles for filling our orders, so they know what a good truffle is. So if they ever go and buy one in the future, they know what to look for. And then we conclude the experience with our sweet dessert. So I make truffle panna cotta and truffle ice cream. And that just blows people's mind. They've never had a truffle with a dessert. And so from the beginning to the end, they're immersed in everything there is about truffles. They ask so many questions and they absolutely love it. And on my confirmation email after the truffle hunt, I asked them if they had a wonderful time, would they mind leaving me a review on TripAdvisor and Google reviews? And I put the link there, make it as seamless and easy as possible for them to do that. And the constant feedback is well, I had a fabulous time. The food was brilliant. Jill was warm and engaging, but also I didn't realize how much I would learn. So you've got to develop your particular industry, your experience, and constantly ask for feedback so you can continually improve. Next slide, please. So some of one of the reasons we started was 3 years ago, we had a very, very wet, rainy autumn, and all of our truffles rotted in the soil. So we lost the entire crop. Now that can happen from time to time in farming. So it's important that, if you need to diversify your income, this is a really great way of doing it to invite people onto your farm. Some of the regulations, there were hurdles. Agritourism was new in the industry. So the local council kind of didn't know what to expect, didn't know what to do. So we went through those hurdles, and now new agritourism operators approach the local council and it's not such a big deal. So that can evolve and get better over time. Educating guests, sometimes guests will turn up, say they'll bring their own dogs, and we don't need dogs on our farm because of biosecurity reasons. So rather than think, oh, this isn't going to work, say that's a learning experience. They didn't know what to expect, and I didn't anticipate them doing that. So now in the confirmation email, when they book a ticket, I write in there, for everyone's safety and for our biosecurity farm purposes, please leave your pets at home. So everything is a learning experience that you will continue to build on. Having no staff to start with, that was always difficult, but change it to what I do is very small, exclusive. I could have had the opportunity to have busloads of people come in, but I couldn't have coped with that and kept the experience as luxurious and intimate and personal as possible. Next slide, please. So some of the lessons I've learned is be authentic. People will pick up on things if you try and suggest things that you don't really know about. They want to know about the everyday things you do, things you think are mundane and regular. They've never seen that before. So weave the storytelling into it. Don't just say, this is our orchard or here are our dogs. Explain what can happen with the dogs sometimes. Sometimes they don't want to hunt. Why is that? And what do I do to overcome that? They want to learn about all the story, all the background there is about your farm. And be engaging, be warm, be welcoming, make sure they feel comfortable. Think about, well, how would they feel really at home to start with? A lot of the people say to me, they felt like family. So make that experience so personal that they just will tell everybody else, you've got to do this experience. So I hope that's helped explain what we do here. And thank you so much for letting us share our story.
No problem. Thank you so much again for the opportunity. My husband David and I run Highfield Farm and Woodland on Wiradjuri land in southern New South Wales. The former slide showed a map of the property where 333 hectares, but 2/3 of the property protects for all time critically endangered habitat, a habitat called box gum grassy woodland. And this habitat only exists in 5% of its former range. Yep, that's the slide. Thank you. That's the dark green area, the conservation area protecting the habitat. We farm the other third, raising sheep for award-winning lamb that we sell directly to customers. But the farmland has temperate native grasslands, and these are even more endangered than the habitat that is in our conservation area. These grasslands only exist in 1% of their former range, and as such, we treat the whole property as a site for protection, enhancement, and environmental repair. So we're on the right slide now, Linda. Thank you. Our agritourism offer includes our off-grid and offline farm stay, which is built using timber grown and milled on the property, and also some recycled building materials. Our farm stay, as you can see from the picture, sits on the intersection of our farmland and our conservation land and above a rocky mountain stream that's home to platypus. Next slide, please. Very good. We offer guests 2 on-farm tours. Our Farming with Habitat tour is where we show guests the habitats on our farm, and guests get to meet our sheep and our cattle. We show how we farm to enhance native biodiversity and improve landscape function via sensitive grazing and revegetation projects. Next slide, please. On our bird watching tour, we don't just seek birds. We talk about the nexus between habitat complexity and bird diversity, and we show how we invite birds into our grazing land via our revegetation projects. We only offer these 2 tours to our staying guests. We aim to provide guests with a more complex way of looking at farmland, highlighting how farming and habitat protection can go together. Our guests tell us that after these tours, they look at farm landscapes in entirely different ways. Thank you. Next slide. We also offer our guests a paddock to plate experience with our farm-grown lamb, our eggs, and our farm-made bread. And we profile the region via regional hampers and a regional cellar. Next slide, please. Our habitat protection now also includes protecting the nighttime ecologies. We are Australia's first and only dark sky approved lodging. Next slide, please. We also offer Highfield to local collaborators to run their workshops here for our guests. We collaborate with a First Nations knowledge holder to offer a cultural workshop. Shane introduces guests to tool making and fibre work alongside First Nations stories. Next slide, please. I'll go ahead. Yeah. Also, we offer our space to a greenwood spoon carver. Next slide, please. There's several reasons we went into agritourism. One was to diversify income, but the most important one for us was to help fund our environmental and conservation work, and also to bring people back to nature. Next slide, please. The key takeaways for us have been to stay small and, well, to start small. You can grow if you want, but start small. Communicate your purpose. For us, this is incredibly important to our particular context. Please also maintain alignment with your purpose. People can tell if you're being inauthentic right away. So keep that alignment. Make sure that if you make eco or environmental claims or sustainable claims, that you back them with rigorous certification and evidence. Support your community, promote the region, promote the region's produce, collaborate with others. And keep learning. Stay in touch with the industry and the research, but importantly, translate that research and that knowledge into your situation. Agritourism doesn't have to be set and forget. You can grow, you can change, you can shrink, and you can adjust. So keep it flexible to your needs. And the most important thing is do you. Be you and do you. Maintain your authenticity. Don't try to be someone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louise. Some excellent key lessons and advice there through your lived experience. Apologies for the little delay there with the technology, but you did fabulous. So what I'd love to do now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to kick us off with a question for Jill and Louise. I think I'll start with Jill. I'll give you a little moment to catch your breath, Louise. And I'll hand over to our moderator, Christine, just to have a look at what's coming in the chat box, because this is about you today. So please, any questions that you have, anything you would like to ask our panelist or myself, please don't hesitate to drop those into the Q&A box and we'll come to you very, very soon. So I'll just stop sharing so we can see everybody on the screen. Excellent. Okay, so my first question, sorry, I'll just bring this over so I can look at everybody. Always fun navigating all of these screens. Okay, Jill, over to you. You've shared a little bit of your story. I've had the pleasure of visiting the truffle farm and you know, having some of that amazing food that you create from scratch. So thank you so much for sharing your story. What I'd love you to share with the audience today is how important collaboration in the tourism industry has been for you and the success you have achieved as a result of that collaboration.
Sure. So in farming, you can often be quite isolated. So the first thing I would recommend people to do is what I did was go to the local business and tourism association and introduce yourself and tell people what you're planning on doing or what you've started to do, and offer the collaboration opportunities there. So the first, probably the obvious way to start was with accommodation providers. So saying, how can we pair up so that you can get more people coming to your accommodation and staying longer and weave in a truffle hunt experience. So all of a sudden we're utilizing each other's networks. So they would put the package of the hunt and the accommodation on their website, which would go to their network. And then I would promote their accommodation on my network. So all of a sudden you just expanded the exposure that you both have. And it's evolved to the point now where I deal with high-end wineries, and we have a collaboration with a helicopter pilot, so that now we have my international tourists that come, I offer them the opportunity to have a helicopter flight over to a most amazing winery to have a personalized cellar tasting. And in reverse, the people that go to the cellar door, they can then also get a helicopter ride to my farm and do a private truffle hunt. So the opportunities are endless, and it also just helps the whole region. And the more people that stay longer in your region, they go into town and they spend at the local businesses and the local restaurants and cafes. So everybody benefits from it. And you can sell it every time they come to the property. They say, well, what else can I do here? And that's when you can then have the opportunity to say, well, we have the most amazing golf course if you like to golf. We have the fishing, and then just guide them through it. So just share what the whole region has. And by doing that, everybody is lifted and you get more and more tourists and you're known as a destination.
Thank you, Jill. Yeah, the tourism industry is certainly a collaborative industry, and similar to what I was saying in terms of that understanding your destination, I feel like that's what you've done really well, Jill, is you really understand your destination and your distinctive point of difference in not just your region, but even the state of New South Wales and maybe even in Australia, right? So having that distinctive difference, but then being able to collaborate with other partners creates that value for everybody and the destination. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, Louise, over to you. You've shared a little bit about your sustainability story, and it's very obvious from what you've shared that that's really important to you and that's value-based. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about sustainability and the importance of this for your agritourism business?
Yeah, well, the whole reason we actually bought this particular property was because it was protecting critically endangered habitat. And we thought this has been a lifelong thing for us. We've always been bushwalkers and spent a lot of time, tinkering with botany and bird watching and so on. So the reason we bought the property was not as a farming property initially. It was to protect critically endangered habitat. But then we realized that we could farm in a very sensitive way and still maintain the habitats that were important to us. And we think that the reason why we bought the property was for that, but also that we acknowledge that we live in an extinction crisis and in climate crisis. And putting that central to our business means that drives everything, drives how we farm, drives what Kestrel Nest looks like, our farm accommodation, and drives the kind of guests that we want to attract. I don't want to attract every guest. I want to attract values-aligned guests, people who will understand the context of our stay, people who'll sort their rubbish, people who'll take their rubbish home with them because we actually ask them to take responsibility for their waste by taking that home. We find that attracting values-aligned guests means that we have better outcomes for the guests because they understand the context of our offer, and we get better guests. We get guests that are sensitive to the wildlife that are around the hut. So this is what I meant by saying communicate your purpose and maintain the alignment with your purpose. And if you do that, then everything falls into place. The kinds of guests you attract, the kinds of guests you don't attract, and the whole offer becomes seamless.
I love that, Louise. I really love that. I think that's a really important message for everybody. And I didn't go into that deeply when I shared my slides, but that aspect around, the destination is also understanding visitors. But I think as well, like you said, you're inviting people onto your farm. This is your personal space. This is home in most cases. So you do want to attract the type of visitors that really align with, your values and your interests. So you've covered so many great messages there in terms of, the authenticity, knowing your market and creating an experience that really aligns with all of that. So important to do that to build a sustainable and long-term successful agritourism experience. Look, thank you so much. I could talk to you two for ages, but I'm going to hand back over to Christine. I see the chat box going crazy, so I'm really curious to see how you're going to moderate some questions.
We
Over
have
to
quite
you.
a few. Yes, thank you so much, Linda, Jill, and Louise, for your great insights and sharing your experiences. So Australia is definitely on my list of places to visit next time, and I will make sure that I visit both of your farms and I meet you, Linda. So we have quite a few questions, some very operational, but some more strategic. So I'm just going to start with one that is very a very practical, but also strategic question. And Linda, this may be a question for you. What source would you recommend for historical data?
Can we start with an easier one?
Okay. So,
and I mean that because it's hard. That is really hard to
but that's an
access.
answer too for people
Yeah.
to understand. It's not easy, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
and particularly when we're talking about, and I know this from an Australian perspective, we are actually getting some movement in this space, which is excellent. Our national organisation, Tourism Research Australia, has just started to publish agritourism specific data. So we've just had the first report released recently, which means we'll now start to get some annual data to give some comparisons. But in terms of looking back at historical data, look, I think that's really tough. I think the first thing I would recommend to people is to have a conversation with their local or regional tourism body, and start there to see what data that they can actually access. It may not be specific agri-tourism data, but if you're able to access data, that's on, visitor markets or trends, or, what's been happening over time within your destination, that's going to guide you a little bit in terms of, creating the right type of experience. So I hope that's helpful.
No, that's great insight. I think with the rise of AI, there will probably be more options out there and available, maybe not so readily available for the individual provider, or to gain that insight, but certainly reaching out to tourism boards or other organizations that you just mentioned. Just thinking of online providers out there at the moment, Sartico, Data Appeal, who also work a lot with the social listening, and who's coming to your destination, and to create personas to then really craft personalized experiences targeted to those consumers. So another question from Kumara. I'm not quite sure where you are based, but I did see a few of your questions in the chat. One that I think either of you on the panel or Linda can probably address. I'm running a travel agency interested to promote my clients towards agritourism. How to start? Who would like to?
I would like to ask Jill or Louise from the other side of it. Have you worked with travel agents? Have either of you worked with agents that, package up your product and sell direct to consumers? And what was the experience like? That might give some insight into how to do it, how you can approach farmers to work with them.
You go first, Jill. I've got a different comment. Yeah.
Okay. I became international ready through our state government organisation, Destination New South Wales, where I learned how to develop my trade kit. So my commissionable rates for inbound tour operators, online tour agencies, so that I attended several events where you'd have those short speed dating appointments. One recently in Brisbane 4 months ago, I had 187 speed dates over 4 days. So promoting my product so that they could then go back to their country and sell it through either a wholesale market or directly through their networks there. So it's important to be able to work with your local authorities that help you to develop that. So you have your trading terms, your fact sheets, everything there is to know about what you do, so that they can easily and seamlessly sell your product overseas.
Great, thank you so much, Jill. Louise, what would you like to add?
I did a probably exactly the same workshops that Jill did, and developed up my trade kit. I also had some speed dating sessions with overseas-based agents. The success of this for me has been entirely different. Not for any lack of effort on my end, but some destinations lend themselves more to attracting international travelers because you're sort of already on a route. And also in your area, Jill, you have a lot more, well, you're close to Sydney and you have a lot more offer that other operators are already trade ready. In my area, there's scarcity. So that means that travel agents don't send people our way. We're not close to Sydney, and there's not a lot of other trade ready places in my area. So I don't want to be negative about that. It's just that it depends on your situation and proximity often to international airports.
Great. Thank you so much, Louise. Another question that we have for those starting with little or no capital, what are the most practical first steps and which business model works best?
I think we all start with very little capital in farming. Just start, as Louise has mentioned, start small. Just focus on one tour, one experience, and just utilize the resources that you have. Don't go out and risk yourselves and get a lot of debt if you don't need to. We're in year 8 now of our farm, and we're only just starting to break even. So, it's a slow moving feast when you're farming. But just look at the agritourism saying, what can I do with the resources that I have? And as it grows and builds, I can then grow and build my offering.
I think that's great advice,
And
Jill. Louise, please, yes.
I'd like to add that, again, the last point I made was do you and be you, and also do the things that you like to do. Don't just try and start an agritourism business because you think it's a good idea. You find your passion point, find the thing that you want to talk to people about, and then and start small, and you'll find it if you do those two things.
And I'll just round that out by saying, think back to those 3 points that I raised when I was speaking, and same as what Jill and Louise have said, starting small. But often what I find working with farmers is they do see what others are doing and they're like, oh, I should do that. And like the brief example I shared with Ben at Esk Beef, that's exactly was his situation. And he was looking at, converting a shed into a wedding venue, building cabins, like we're talking massive investment into his farm to do that. Whereas now what he's going to do is start with the farm tours, absolute no capital outlay. So he can start that process, and actually the regulation and compliance to do that is much simpler. So I would say, backing up what Jill and Louise have said, start small, be you, know what works on your farm and test the market, and you can start to build further experiences as you start to get familiar with tourism and the markets that you're attracting to your farm.
That's great advice, Linda and Louise. Jill, thank you so much. So a question that we've kind of touched base on before, but it goes a little bit in a different direction. How can partnerships or creative marketing expand reach? Do you have any examples of partnerships that you could share with the panel?
Jill, I feel like you've got some of these.
Okay. Well, when I first started, I realized I had lots of gaps. Like, I know how to farm, but I was, a bit slow on social media. I created my own website and it wasn't that great. So a lot of partnerships came through from talking to people that had a skill in another area that I didn't have. So I would talk to them and say, well, how do I develop my website? How do I get my booking system to really sting? How do I write better content so that when people are reading things, they say, hey, I really want to do that. So, partner with people that can support you, that can share their knowledge and learn from that, and grow your own skill set as you'll never stop learning. But that would be for me the partnerships that do an analysis. Where are your gaps? And seek people out that can help you fill those gaps.
Great, thank you, Jill.
Can I add, Christine? There's what we often see in Australia, and this works quite well from a marketing perspective, is this concept of bundling, or we could call it trails. And if anybody wants to Google, or perhaps Kushla can drop a link into the chat box, which is the Canola Trail. This is a project we worked on like 10 years ago. Louise, not far from you, in New South Wales. The Canola Trail, essentially based off the beauty that the yellow or the goldenness of the canola creates in the paddocks across this Riverina region in New South Wales. It's now created its own distinctive brand, and there's all of these operators and farmers and even, more tourism operators within that ecosystem that are now actually collaborating to create these marketing campaigns and initiatives, and they're attracting media attention and they're adding new experiences all the time. So that concept, and I think the theme that we're seeing here is collaboration, right? I think it's the collaboration and finding those people that you have, similar, I guess, values and interests, and start to look at those opportunities to bring those things together, because we know that visitors, they're not looking at borders or boundaries, they just want a great experience. So if you can partner with somebody else to really elevate what you offer, then that's going to create such a richer experience for the visitor and create greater satisfaction.
No, I fully agree. There has been a recent study actually by KPMG confirming that over 90% of executives worldwide believe that partnerships spark innovation and fuel growth. So there's so much that can be done through partnerships. Well, thank you so much. I have one more question here from, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Akisi Stokes Nelson with Wonder Grubs in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm just going to read this to you. We have a modular on-site insect farming business in partnership with farmers throughout the metro area. We want to collaborate with our partners to create an agritourism experience. Does the panel have lived experience with this use case and advice for considerations in drafting agreements between the partners?
I guess the first step is having the conversation and understanding where everybody fits into the collaboration. I don't personally have any agreements in place, but it is a lot of conversations, a lot of Zoom meetings, and a lot of what if scenarios. What if this happens? What if that happens? How are we going to deal with that? And just be on the same page and have, like Linda pointed out at the first, where are the no-go zones? Be really open and honest about what you're trying to achieve out of what the collaboration will deliver. And, again, I haven't got any contracts or agreements in place, but I have a lot of good relationships, and you've developed trust with a lot of these partnerships, and they become good friends, because you're all in the same trench together. You're all trying to achieve the same outcome. So for me, I'd rather have those sorts of relationships where there's trust and ongoing communication and those friendships than just trying to have paper-based agreements, because it is evolving. It's always, going to change, and you need to be flexible. So that's just my advice, is just grow and expand and have fun with it.
That's great advice. I have an interesting that speaks to my heart working with students. I have someone asking here, how can we further leverage international student exchange programs from universities around the world to enhance skills transfer, deepen cultural exchange, and strengthen the sustainability of these agritourism initiatives? Do you have any experiences working with universities?
I don't have any direct involvement with universities, but I have involvement with culinary schools. So I love bringing on students in culinary classes to come onto the farm, learn where the food comes from, experience what all the processing behind the scenes. We have had many chefs come on farm, so that when they have their guests in their restaurants, they know where that food is coming from, and they can develop their storytelling when they're delivering, the guest experience that they have. So, and even attending fine food shows where those students and other chefs come to Australia to be there, so you can share your story there. So the opportunities are limitless, and the student contingency, even the agricultural students, that they want to come and experience what you do on the farm. How do you operate? Where are your biosecurity measures, your policies, your procedures? How do you work with, visitors on farm, or how do you improve productivity? The options are endless. And so yes, reach out to the universities, suggest that I can offer something like this if you feel it would be of benefit to your curriculum. And you'll find most of the time that they'll come back and saying, great idea, let's work on that together and let's make something happen.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Reaching out is great advice. And I just see there's a comment here in the chat. University of Maine is offering a certificate agritourism credential. So that's another avenue to explore. We're at the end of the hour, almost 2 minutes left. So I have one final question for you, Linda. So based on your work with agritourism operators around the world, what's one key advice you would give to participants at any stage of their journey, whether they're just starting out, exploring new ideas, or scaling an existing operation to create authentic, valuable, and sustainable experiences for their visitors? We know that that's what people are looking for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think I've answered that throughout today. Listening to, and even the Q&A, it was really obvious. I think the two things I wrote down here as people were talking was collaboration and networks.
Mm-hmm.
I think whether you're starting your journey, you're in your journey right now, I think the biggest thing that I would encourage people to do is work with nearby businesses, look for those government, those key government contacts, community groups and organizations, and form those collaborative networks. Like Jill was saying, relationship building, creating trust and really get that collaboration happening where you can create even experience clusters. I gave a really quick example of the canola trail. So I think collaboration. Move outside your own sphere or bubble, start to extend yourself beyond that. And then I think second to that, which is really closely linked to that, is building your networks. The tourism industry is heavily based on networks. There are so many layers of government. There's different organizations, there's operators, there's associations. I think getting out there and meeting new people in the industry and building up your networks will be extremely valuable, no matter what stage you're at in your journey.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Linda, Jill, Louise, for sharing your expertise and insights with us, with the global panel. It was an excellent discussion. Your experience and examples have provided us with, some great inspirations to me, and I'm sure to the audience as well. Things to think about, and we hope we've sparked new ideas for everyone joining us from around the world today. Thank you also to you, our wonderful audience, in making this webinar a truly global experience and knowledge exchange platform. We also want to make sure this conversation continues, right? Not just today, but throughout the year. So GON hosts ongoing webinars and learning sessions on a range of agritourism topics, whether it's business development, visitor experience, design, policy, sustainability, and so much more. So if you'd like to stay involved, please visit our website to learn about upcoming events and to register for these free sessions. We're also very excited to host our first Global Agritourism Conference next year in Aberdeen, Scotland, June 23 to 25. It will be a showcase of diversity and growth of the global agritourism sector with data, research, policy, personal stories provided by a unique international learning opportunity for probably around 1,000 delegates is what we're hoping for. So registration is open and we hope to see you there. Next slide, please. Our final QR code before you exit the webinar. Please take a short survey. Let us know your feedback on today's webinar. What was helpful? What could be improved? What topics should we cover in the future? Also, if you would be interested in presenting or speaking, moderating, please let us know. We'll always, look to do a better job of supporting agritourism and sharing best practices. So please let us know how the GON can be more impactful. In about a week from now, you should be receiving the recording. So with this being said, thanks for joining us today, and we hope to see you at our future webinars and events.